Now let's talk a little bit about the studio, because you guys launched that studio, 35 years ago? Do you even remember what the date was or anything like that?
78.
78. And was it always in that building? Is that?
No, the first studio was in a coach house over off of North Avenue.
Oh, wow.
On Dayton Street.
Okay.
And
You remember the first recording you did?
No.
I didn't expect you to.
I had several guinea pigs.
Did you? Yeah.
And I was working at another studio called Acme that used to be up on Southport.
Yeah, I remember.
Like
Acme
Grassfeld.
was there for a long time. I mean, yeah.
And I didn't know, I was playing piano in clubs and stuff, but I didn't know really anything about recording. And Michael kind of was like a teacher, guru type of guy. So he was always talking and telling me about quarter-inch tape and editing and leader. And so I would do some promo work for him in exchange for studio time for my band. And then finally I bought my first 4-track.
So you're playing piano, and we should preface this whole thing, piano player. I mean, starting out, piano player, composer, and Joanie's vocalist, right? Before you got into the producing and everything else,
yeah.
and you
Sure.
with the sound recording and design and all that stuff. So how does a piano player who's playing in clubs were you interested in recording, or were you just like, yeah, okay, I'll learn some of this stuff so I can just, record for free then?
Well, I kind of wanted to do my first album, but I
Okay.
didn't have any money.
Right.
So I would figure out bartering deals. So if I was hanging out at the studio writing press releases or helping them make coffee or assistant engineering,
Sure.
I got some studio time. But it ended up I saved up my money and I bought a reel-to-reel 4-track. And I taped my first record. A friend of mine was upstairs in the kitchen with the mixer and the tape recorder. We were downstairs in the garage.
At the coach house.
Right, for
Yeah.
separation. And that was called Latin Black. And that came out in '79.
Wow.
I tried to sell it to Delmark, but he didn't want it.
Yeah. Did you just put it out by yourself?
That's when the label started.
Oh, okay. So that was like the first
That
one
was
to
pre-me.
launch. Okay, to
Joanie
launch.
was still in Cincinnati.
Okay.
I didn't come along till, well, I moved here in '79, but we didn't meet for another year after that. or
So you
two.
started Southport Records. Was it called Southport Records?
No,
then,
it was
or
called Sparrow.
Sparrow. Okay.
It was called Sparrow Sound Design, the name of our studio, right? And then we were gonna, when we moved up to Southport Avenue, where we built the new studio, we weren't even gonna do a label for a minute. We were thinking, let's just focus on the studio. And then
This was like what, the mid '80s or something? Is
this
that
was
right?
83.
And you
the
were
year
already playing all over town. You were a vocalist.
Oh, yeah.
Playing. You came back because you were in Cincinnati. You moved up here. How'd you end up moving to Chicago?
for radio and TV commercial work.
Oh, okay. So you were
Yeah.
were you doing jingles or voiceover or?
Yeah, about a year after I was when I moved here in '79. Jingles mostly.
Because there was still a lot of work up there.
There was a lot of work back then. Yeah, that helped us get our studio going.
Sure. Sure.
And when we moved to Southport, I wanted to do my first record. So then we said, well, we have to rename the label, which that's another story. But we had to rename the label, and we said Southport Records. So that's how that happened.
You
And
wanted
that
to
was-
rename it from Sparrow Sound to Southport because just it made more
Actually-
sense?
There's a large religious label called Sparrow.
Sparrow Records.
Oh, there is.
And
Okay.
they sent me a letter and they said that I couldn't use that name for my record label. So I gave it to Joanie's lawyer at the time, who was a Shelton downtown, big shot lawyer.
Uh-huh.
I showed him my paperwork, and I had registered my name under Sparrow Restaurant because I had a Sparrow restaurant.
Okay.
When you used to do the county registration, where you pay $35 and they print it in the
Isn't that
paper.
unbelievable?
So my registration was actually before
Prior.
the record.
Oh.
So he said I could sue them if I wanted to. I said, no, I don't want to sue a religious label. So
Right.
Well,
yeah.
and how much money it
Yeah.
would cost. Like, we were just getting started.
They have
We're like,
unlimited
no.
funds, I
So-
assure you.
So they said you can keep the name of your studio as
Right.
Sparrow Sound Design,
Okay.
but change the label name. We're
Ah.
like, okay. So that's why it became Southport.
Because you're on
Records.
Southport.
I figure if I name it right after the street could sue itself.
We were clear then.
Well, this is Chicago, so it might
Right,
actually.
you never know.
You never know. So the first recording that you put out on Southport Records was your recording.
Was mine, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Whisper Not,
Whisper Not.
1986, and it's black vinyl.
Wow. So, I mean, back then, when you start a label, I mean, are you going through the whole process? And I'm talking out of, you guys know more about this than me, obviously. I would hope so. I would definitely hope so. But I mean, you guys start a label back in the 80s. I mean, you've got to do everything, obviously, is mailing out copies to people.
Oh, yeah.
Cassettes and vinyl, is that what you guys would mail out back then?
In the
or-
beginning, cassettes and vinyl.
No internet.
No, right.
No
Yeah.
computer network. We didn't even have that figured out.
No,
Or
nothing, right?
databases, no.
Yeah, because everything's probably just on paper.
And the
or-
graphics,
Faxing.
graphics that
Oh, you paste it on with the graphics
Oh, yeah.
before they had to. And then they had a thing called a copiograph. I can't remember what's the name of it. That would kind of do photographically text and fonts, but you still have to use rubber cement to glue it down.
But once we got past
Isn't that unbelievable?
Oh, and going back to the old studio, affectionately we called it the pit because it was in the pit, it was in the garage. Right. Billy Branch recorded his first record with Sparrow at the studio back then called
we were talking about
Where's
that
the
off
Money?
camera. Where's the money?
Yeah,
Red Bean, was it Red Bean?
Red Beans label, I think he sold. It wasn't on our label, but yeah.
And that was like a 4-track? Is that-
4-track,
Yeah.
and
4-track.
everything in the same room.
So we've always recorded as a recording studio
Yeah.
other artists that didn't necessarily go on our record label.
Right.
Right. So it was a combination.
So as a separate studio and then
yeah.
as a record label.
So that was our business too.
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know.
running a record label back in the 80s, I mean, was that something that's completely different than it is obviously today? But I mean, back then you guys had a real established name, so you must have been. I mean, it was growing as a. Was it still considered a local label, or was it getting? I mean, it was getting national airplay.
Yeah, it was
but
local, and then independent. I guess
Okay.
they would call it independent label. And I think that having our friends and our elders then, and this is funny, I'll start with that, but we would record Willie Pickens was our first kind of flagship artist on the label, and that really helped put our name on the map, and then Von Freeman with his Walkin' Tough record. But we talked about this. We were like, we're their age when we were recording them now, or it's just
Isn't that
time
wild?
is so weird.
Yeah.
Because we were young then, and they were our age where we are now.
And you
or
thought they were
younger.
old.
You're right.
No, we didn't think they were old.
Yeah, they were like our
No,
parents.
George. I don't think George.
Now
is
we're old. We're like an 8-track, man.
But you guys recorded a lot of. A lot of the Chicago legends. I mean,
We're very lucky.
Yeah, and that's like documentation that nobody else has. So, I mean, what do you do with that? I mean, you have the whole archive, right? So, I mean, you guys kept putting it out, and if you're like, and I'm going to just relate it back to me. I mean, we've done a lot of interviews. We've
Yeah.
had the magazine since 2002, so it's been ongoing, and I don't even think about it anymore. But I mean, we interviewed all these people over the years. I don't even think about it. It doesn't. Next month moves into the next month, into the next month. It's great. And moving on. I mean, can you guys believe that you're already at like 148 releases? And
all the artists and musicians that we recorded in the studio too.
Yeah.
That aren't on the label. It's been a really lucky life to have music like that.
And we're lucky that the larger studios and what was left of any record labels weren't recording. We would never have had the opportunity to tape a Willie Pickens or a Von Freeman or Yusuf Lateef.
Well, Vaughn brought Yusef in.
Right.
Vaughn was so great,
Yeah.
like that. He would always say, well, if you're going to record in Chicago, we got to go to Joanie and Sparrow's.
That's Von.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
Vaughn,
Yeah.
Vaughn always wanted to do first takes, by the way.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah.
And he would say, make everything loud.
Really?
What do you want in your mix? I want everything loud.
Everybody should be heard the
Heard.
same. Everything should be
kidding.
loud.
Wow. Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the record label business too. I mean, you guys are in the 80s and you're doing it one way. Moving into the 90s, the advent of the internet, then you have to shift a little bit, right? And now, I mean, it is what it is.
Well, they made it where you pay for something, but you don't see it, and you don't really have it. It's in the cloud.
Right.
So that's really a ripoff when you think about it.
Yeah.
Especially if a file gets, I mean, you can get a session, like a Pro Tools session from somebody, they don't even write down where the kick drum is. So you could spend all day looking for the kick drum.
Oh, really?
It's
They
like,
don't even.
name the file. And it's like English is separated from digital. And the beauty of CDs and LPs and cassettes is that you have your graphics with your audio, and you own it yourself. You can give it to your kids, your friends. But when everything gets separate, it's like you're buying air,
Yeah.
including Chance the Rapper.
Yeah.
Except he did really good.
He did. He's not doing too bad.
He did good with air.
That's right. Well, I mean, one of the big things I think, as far as a record label and things like that, is the promotion aspect of it, right? And I mean, when you guys are starting out and back in the 80s, let's just talk a little bit about that because it's fascinating to me. I mean, you're putting out your recordings. How are you going about it? I mean, how are you going about promoting it and then promoting it nationally back then? I mean, that to me is just, it's tough now, but back then
you know
it
how
had to
you
be.
you start compiling your lists of contacts. You know, with press people, writers. You know, you start in Chicago with people you know, get a couple of reviews. You know, and then you move on, and then somebody notices that, they recorded Willie Pickens. Oh, so then this other artist that we never heard of, maybe we should listen to that. You know,
Goes down a wormhole a little bit, right?
it kind of all evolves that way. So, you know, doing press is all about being diligent.
Yeah.
You know, still to this day. I mean, I was on the horn all day yesterday, and on the computer all day. And now it's like people, the percentage of responses that you get, it's so hard with people. Everybody's so busy with their own lives and everything else, and they're bombarded with getting so much product.
Right.
The writers, the radio stations, the magazines, everything. And it has shifted into the cloud and to streaming and all that, you know.
Right.
And so, but still, the percentages of responses I'm getting, it's like, George said, Joanie, you're doing everything for me. And I said, no, you're doing everything for us.